Let's travel back in time to the most primitive and unforgiving era of nature. In the suffocating silence of an ancient pitch-black forest, you are huddled around a flickering, fragile fire. The darkness surrounding you is thick, profound, and endless. It presses in from all sides, hiding terrors your eyes cannot see but your mind can vividly imagine. Suddenly, the sharp snap of a dry twig shatters the quiet. Instantly, the hairs on the back of your neck stand on end. Your heart hammers against your ribs, and your breath catches in your throat. You can feel it with terrifying clarity. A cold, ravenous gaze is staring unblinkingly at you from just beyond the edge of the firelight. Welcome to the prehistoric age, a time when you were not the apex hunter, but the prey. In the brutal survival landscape of the ancient wild, our species stepped up to the starting line as the ultimate underdog. We possessed no fangs to fight, no armored scales to protect us, and walking upright made us some of the worst sprinters in the food chain. We were agonizingly slow, practically blind in the dark and draped in soft, fragile skin that offered absolutely no resistance to a predator's strike. If survival were merely a muscle-flexing contest, our species would have been eradicated in the very first round. Because we couldn't outrun or overpower the silent, night-hunting beasts that shared our world, our severe physical weakness forced us to develop a completely different kind of weapon. To survive being the most vulnerable prey in the forest, we didn't grow sharper claws or thicker hides. Instead, we developed a hyper-vigilant, maddening obsession with the feeling of being watched. That terrifying chill of unseen eyes lurking in the darkness became our only armor. Why is the sensation of a hidden gaze so uniquely terrifying, and why did it dictate our evolution? To understand this, you have to put yourself in the mindset of the hunted. In the prehistoric wild, apex predators like saber-toothed cats, dire wolves, or giant hyenas were absolute masters of the ambush. Their ultimate weapon was never just their bite. It was the element of complete surprise. For these predators, a successful hunt relied on remaining entirely unseen until the fatal pounce. Once a stalking predator is detected, once its eyes meet the eyes of its prey before it has the chance to strike, the ambush is ruined. The predator loses its advantage. Therefore, sensing an invisible lurking gaze in the darkness was the single, razor-thin boundary between life and death. Detecting that you were being watched was the only way to short-circuit an ambush before it began. Because the stakes were so absolute, the human brain was forced to evolve a radical psychological defense mechanism. A highly sensitive, paranoid alarm system. Imagine a sudden, sharp gust of wind rustling a nearby bush. In the pitch-black night, the severe lack of visual information forces the brain to make a split-second guess if a brave, optimistic early human clicked their tongue. Assumed it was just the wind, and ignored the sound, they would instantly become dinner if a predator was actually lurking there. Nature is relentlessly cruel and never tolerates naive optimism. All the courageous but unwary individuals were chewed up and eliminated from the evolutionary gene pool long before they could pass on their brave but foolish genes. Conversely, our ancestors were the most pessimistic, paranoid, and anxious creatures imaginable. Every time they heard a tiny rustle in the leaves or felt a cold breeze on the back of their necks, their brains instantly sounded a blaring red alert. Something is staring at me, even if it was just the wind 99 times out of 100 on that 100th time. That spine-chilling paranoia gave them the split-second head start needed to survive. That icy shiver down your spine when you feel watched is not a glitch in your brain. It became the sharpest survival instinct we possess, permanently hardwired into the human genome. We survived not because we were strong, but because we were absolute masters of fear. But merely being terrified was not enough to guarantee survival. A lone, hyper-paranoid individual would quickly go mad or collapse from sheer exhaustion under the crushing psychological weight of the dark. The relentless obsession with being watched forced our ancestors to make a monumental evolutionary leap. They had to huddle together. The profound physical and psychological fragility of the individual gave birth to the unstoppable strength of the tribe. The fire at the center of their camp did more than just radiate heat or cook food. It drew a sacred, glowing boundary, a literal fortress of light against the encroaching death outside. And around that fire, terrified of the invisible eyes in the dark, humans began to communicate relentlessly. They didn't just use primitive language to discuss hunting tactics or gathering locations. They used it to share their deep-seated anxieties. If anyone felt the hairs on their neck stand up, they would immediately sound the alarm, pointing into the abyss. The paralyzing fear of being stalked forced early humans to pool their sensory resources, merging their eyes and ears to create a 360-degree surveillance system with no blind spots. They took turns staying awake through the night, using the collective gaze of the tribe to sweep the darkness and detect the slightest unnatural movement. This constant need to sound the alarm evolved into something even more profound: storytelling. To keep everyone vigilant, they shared terrifying tales of the beasts that lurked just beyond the light, warning the young never to wander off. The habit of sharing signs of danger. The continuous stream of communication and the hypervigilance of the group became humanity's most impenetrable shield. Our empathy, our complex language, and our desperate need to connect with one another around a flickering light were all born directly from the paralyzing dread of what was watching us from the shadows. Through the longest, coldest, and most brutal nights of ancient history, it was precisely the haunting sensation that something was hiding in the dark that bound naked, vulnerable humans together. We survived not through the brute courage to charge out and face the beasts, but through absolute paranoia, relentless collective vigilance, and a primal fear etched so deeply into our souls that we still feel it today. So, the next time you are alone in the dark and feel that sudden, irrational urge to look over your shoulder, don't dismiss it. It is the greatest epic of survival ever told, echoing through your DNA a reminder that we are here today entirely because our ancestors were forever haunted by the eyes in the dark.